The ATA's Trucking Cares Foundation and Facing Fentanyl have teamed up to raise awareness for the ongoing fentanyl crisis in America by releasing custom trailer wraps featuring PSAs with messages from loved ones affected by fentanyl-related deaths. Some experts are predicting an incoming manufacturing and trucking boom caused by declining populations in places like Japan, Russia, and China. And those in the specialty freight sector may be scrambling for alternatives after the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. We'll hit all those stories, get an update on the latest driver recruiting and freight data, and of course, check in with Jason Miller for what he has to say in his monthly economic update. For Randall Reilly, I'm Joshua Miller, and this is the 30-Day Reset. Welcome to the 30-Day Reset. Every month we take a look at the latest driver recruiting and freight data, news stories, and check in with Michigan State's Jason Miller. That sounds like something you'd be interested in. You can make sure you never miss a new edition of our show here by subscribing to our YouTube channel and clicking that little bell for notifications. And don't forget, all the numbers and data we cover today, as well as info on the news stories and all of the charts featured in Jason's economic breakdown, are available to you in April's 30-Day Reset download. You can check down in the description if you're over on YouTube, or fill out the form below if you happen to be watching on our Randall Reilly site. Now, let's get into this month's data. First up, it's Trucking by the Numbers, brought to you by Stratus Strategize. We're not quite out of the woods yet, but some recent forecasts are more positive than previously stated. More companies are looking for drivers, and at the same time, the data shows the number of drivers is slowly lessening, which is starting to bring driver supply and demand back into balance. If this keeps up, it's great news moving forward, but it will also likely lead to higher lead costs when the March tallies are finalized, with the uptick in competition for drivers and slight decline in interest for driver jobs. March's search activity was at the second lowest point since the start of 2023, with only this past December being lower. The number of companies posting for driver jobs increased by 5% in February, while through the first half of March, the overall average cost per lead was 2% higher month over month after rising 13% in January. As we look at the latest freight data, the total spot market rates have now increased for 4 straight weeks, and the last time that happened was 2 years ago. Now, the total gain was relatively small, 6 cents in total, but it's a gain nonetheless. Total spot market rates were at their highest since July, with most of that due to flatbed rates, and they have only declined once in the past 7 weeks. Overall rates were down 4% year over year and 6% when you compare it to the 5-year average. And overall load activity took a dip of 5% after increasing for 4 consecutive weeks. That load activity was up 4% year over year, but down 27% compared to the 5-year average. When we look at the individual segments, drive and load volume was down 5% year over year, while rates dipped 1.5% year over year. Refrigerated loads were down 4% year over year, and rates were up 1% year over year. And the flatbed volume registered a year over year increase of 13%, while the rates were down by 5% year over year. For a more detailed look at all the recruiting and freight data, check out this month's 30-Day Reset download, and again, that's available down below. Now, let's get into some of the latest headlines. The ATA's Trucking Cares Foundation has partnered with Facing Fentanyl to try and raise awareness about the ongoing fentanyl crisis in America. Fentanyl poisonings claim over 70,000 lives each year and is the #1 killer of adults 18 to 45 and is responsible for a death every 5 minutes. To combat this, the two have produced 5 different trailer wrap designs for 53-foot trailers, which feature messages from those who have lost loved ones to fentanyl. The wrap will be produced with the premium 3M vinyl with a film laminate providing up to 7 years of durability and offered at a 40% discount in an effort to make the wraps as affordable as possible. Ken Gronbach, an author, demographer, and generational marketer, has had some interesting insights based on declining populations around the globe and how that could impact manufacturing and trucking here at home. He shared his thoughts in his keynote address at the Truckload Carriers Association's annual convention held in Nashville, Tennessee. He asserted that the older populations in countries like Japan and China have no younger people coming in to fill the gaps behind them. He also pointed out that Russia is losing population both due to the ongoing war and an exodus of citizens. As these populations continue to decline, China's manufacturing capabilities could nosedive, and that would open up opportunities for America and Mexico. If that boom in manufacturing does take place, that would necessarily lead to an increase in freight movement here in the States as well. Gronbach also added, "The best days of the United States and the Americas are ahead of us, not behind us." Let's hope he's right. And finally, following the tragic collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, many are left looking for a new route and wondering what to do. Nearly 5,000 trucks cross that bridge daily. In addition to the loss of the bridge itself, the Port of Baltimore is currently closed in the aftermath. The Port of Baltimore is the third largest for import and export of construction equipment and the largest import-export site for farm equipment and finished vehicles in the entire country. And it's that specialty equipment, like construction and farm machinery, that could have the most challenges moving forward. The second largest roll-on, roll-off port is 700 miles south in Brunswick, Georgia. Having to shift operations away from Baltimore will almost certainly result in longer routes, meaning fewer deliveries per truck per day, and that could end up creating tighter local capacity. That'll do it for today's stories. You can get more information, including links to full stories with even more details, where? Again, in that download down below. Now let's check in and see what Jason Miller has to say in this month's Economic Update.
March was a much worse month than I think many folks expected. We saw DAT's dry van spot prices go down a couple more cents at $2.01 per mile right now. And so there's still that very wide spread between broker buy contract rates and the dry van spot price. And we are just seeing no upward movement right now of those dry van prices. That brings that dry van spot market cycle indicator that I like to focus on as an index of where market conditions are at. And brought it back to 21%, and 21% is solidly in bear market pricing territory. So right now, we're not seeing any good upward momentum for spot prices that we would need to eventually kick contract prices higher. So we're entering Q2 in a continual weak pricing environment if you're in the dry van truckload space. Understanding why this is the reality is freight volumes out there are just not good right now. I know there's been a lot of talk of elevated containerized imports, but remember, imports are a small percentage of the freight that actually moves. And if we take a look at the seasonally adjusted trucking ton mile index, we're down about 4.5% from the peak in early 2022. That is a freight recession that's now about 2.5 to maybe even 3 times the magnitude in terms of volume that we witnessed in 2019. Now, that January reading is quite steeply down, but that was due to the polar vortex. We know February's reading is going to jump up a little bit, so I don't expect that downward trend to continue, but we're still moving along right now in a trough. We're not seeing any signs yet of a significant uptick in freight volume that we are going to need to get ourselves out of this, weak pricing environment. Now, this being said, there is sort of one positive sign on the horizon right now. And it's still early, data is still provisional, but single-family housing activity is looking much, much, much better as we start 2024 than in comparison to this time last year. So single-family housing starts on a seasonally adjusted basis are up over 20% from where they were last year. And they're actually right now running at the highest levels that they've been at since early 2022 before the Federal Reserve started raising interest rates. And the key thing I want to remind everybody is housing starts are slower in the winter months. And so I tend not to get too excited about seeing high seasonally adjusted readings in December, January, and February. But one thing to keep in mind is if we just look at when, February single family starts, assuming 2024's data doesn't get revised much, that 79,000 reading is the highest since 2022. And if we take out the abnormality that was 2022, that's the highest reading since 2007. And so we do seem to be seeing some signs of encouragement here. A lot of those starts are going to be in Texas, Florida, Georgia. And so it's going to be, not a national phenomena, but more of a regional phenomena. It's good for your flatbed carriers, but it also does help your dry van carriers that haul things like large appliances. So we'll have to be closely watching where single-family housing activity evolves over the next few months. So again, as we're thinking about what this means at the moment is we still are in a fairly weak volume environment. We may have some encouraging signs here, but again, at the end of the day, manufacturing is what drives the majority of trucking activity, and we're just not seeing those really strong bullish signs yet from manufacturing that make me too excited. So what I tell everybody is hang in there. Hopefully within a few months, we start to see those volumes start to improve beyond just seasonality. And single family starts could be the thing that leads that. So with that, everybody stay safe, and we'll be with you next month.
Thanks so much, Jason. As always, your update is very much appreciated. And with that, we have come to the end of yet another edition of the 30-Day Reset. For more details on anything we covered today, including Jason's update, you can get all of that in the April 30-Day Reset download available below. If you'd like to talk to someone on our team here at Randall Reilly to see how we can partner with you to help you reach your goals, let us know. There's also a contact link in the YouTube description, as well as a link to Strategize if you'd like to check out all of the data that's available to you. And all of that can be found below the player on our site as well. That'll do it for us this time, but we will be back again next month with another edition of the 30-Day Reset. Until then, thanks for watching. Well, hey there. Thanks for watching all the way to the end too. Really appreciate that. You know what else I'd appreciate? If you went ahead and liked, shared, subscribed. Basically, if there's any buttons or doohickeys around, click them. If you like our content, like the 30-Day Reset, you can get more of that, like these things over here. This video is chosen specifically for you, or this video here, which is the other video with my mug in it, the Recruiting Roundup. Okay, bye.